But we always look forward for a chance to spend a little time with our friend Bob Dane. FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, fairus.org is how you can check out their website. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing great. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, not real happy about what happened in California. There is a time to be mad, and certainly in the aftermath of this vibrant, beautiful young woman who was killed by an illegal alien in California, there is palpable outrage across the country.
And you got people scrambling for cover. You've got people who have championed this whole sanctuary city thing and, giving high fives and kudos every time something like this happens. Now, all of a sudden, well, wait a minute. We may not be totally in favor of this, waiting for it to blow over.
Yeah, and one of the most audacious backpedalings, it came out of the White House. Josh Earnest blamed the Republicans for this murder because Republicans didn't pass the Senate amnesty bill last year, which, that's about as random a reason as blaming the lunar tides. The White House is scrapping all remaining vestige of immigration enforcement in America. They are promoting these dangerous anti-detainer and sanctuary policies, and they are so militantly dug in, they are not only ignoring the chaos and the carnage they have created, but they're at the point now where they have no shame in telling bold-faced lies 48 hours after a beautiful young woman, Catherine Steinle, age 32, was killed cold on a pier, minding her own business, walking with her family, by an illegal alien who had been deported 5 times, had racked up 7 felonies, including narcotics. He was recently picked up by ICE for a drug warrant, turned over to the San Francisco police with a detainer, meaning, hold this guy, because he's a bad guy, we're going to come pick him up. But San Francisco, because of various anti-detainer policies, decided not to prosecute him, put him back out on the street.
Bob Dane with us from FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform, Riley and Scott on WROK. We just ran down before the news, Bob. This is not the first time something like this has happened. We have multiple time deported illegal immigrants returning, committing crimes, committing felonies, committing murders, committing fatal DUIs across the country, Arizona, elsewhere. And this particular case seems to have either struck a nerve, or is it perhaps just because, dare we say, Donald Trump shined a spotlight or attempted to bring up the fact that some illegal immigrants are coming here and committing crimes? What's the mix that has made this particular story become a little bit bigger than the others?
I think you make a good point. I think this has punctuated how far from reality and common sense and public safety we have gone. Look, if you want to solve illegal immigration, let's at least do the easy stuff first. Most of us would agree that what should happen, what has always happened, is that when a local police officer arrests somebody and discovers they're an illegal alien, they have always notified ICE. ICE then asks the local police, hey, hold the alien for 48 hours after he serves his local sentence. We're going to come pick him up. That's called a detainer. It's just common sense. And frankly, think about it. That's the easy stuff for ICE to deal with, coming to get illegal aliens already in lockup. And so it represents a basic minimum for immigration enforcement. But we've come so far from that because 3 things have to happen. First, the city has to be willing to even ask about immigration status. San Francisco doesn't do that. They have to notify ICE when an illegal alien is getting released from their local jail. San Francisco and about 103 other cities across the country won't do that. And, of course, the final step here is ICE has to ultimately be willing to pick them up. Sadly, in many instances, because of the Obama administration priorities, they don't even do that. And I might add this. In the last year in California alone, and we are focusing on California. I know you're in Illinois, but as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. In California, there have been over 10,000 detainer requests that have been ignored. So kind of begs the question, how many more Catherine Steinles are out there waiting to happen?
And at what point, in an effort, as you mentioned, to try to revive some bit of credibility, is there a little trickle down from above saying, "Listen, when we do ask for this, you're gonna have to honor it. You're making us look bad by not doing it."
Well, look, when the anti-detainer policies were put in place, there was a lot of pressure, not only by all of the California sheriffs across throughout California, but you even had the ICE director, John Morton, at that time. He was opposed to it because he said, and he was right, that anti-detainer policies undermined public safety. But, it was California. So even Hollywood weighed in. And I remember Martin Sheen, just before the governor signed that anti-detainer law, he said, this is necessary because, quote, all of the illegal aliens are trying to do is to make ends meet. But now it's getting even worse. The ACLU is upping the ante. They claim ICE not only has to get a detainer, but they need to get a judicial warrant, which then, raises the bar from civil to criminal penalties. Basically, when Jerry Brown signed that, he signed Catherine Steinle's death certificate because he abolished the last vestige of immigration enforcement in America. And, I think the bloodiest hands of all, and I hate to be blunt, but we're angry about this, is that the ACLU has been fighting tooth and nail all over the country, in your state, here in Washington, D.C., and California, to make sure that the detainers are not honored. They've got no regard for the consequences of their action.
Bob Dane with us from fairus.org. What about secure communities? Secure communities is gone now, right? That was done away with by the Obama administration.
Sure, it's another one of those death by 1,000 cuts. The Obama administration, over 7 years, has pretty much systematically whittled away most of the local enforcement programs. Secure communities was a good one because they cross-checked fingerprints with ICE to see who may be in the country illegally. Well, they've scrapped that and then promised to put a new program in place, and you and I both know that any time this administration scraps something and says they're going to put a new program in place, it either doesn't happen or it's a program that really reduces the integrity of immigration enforcement.
And, when you talk about the enforcement angle on things, San Francisco Sheriff Ross Mercarimi, last year, quote, my long-held belief is that local law enforcement should not be in the civil immigration detainer business. And he had deputies on his department who opposed those policies. Reportedly, they were secretly helping federal authorities get illegal immigrants off the street until March, when the sheriff issued a directive stating that only he could turn people over to ICE.
Immigration enforcement has to happen at one level or the other, ideally at both. But the federal government has abandoned all credible immigration enforcement in the United States. Any jurisdiction that tries to pick up the slack feels the iron fist of the Department of Justice and the ACLU and other groups. So it's sort of we won't here at the federal level, and you can't there at the local level. But ultimately, it is a politician's job to fairly allocate limited resources to legal residents. It is certainly a sheriff or a police chief's responsibility to uphold public safety. Ideally, San Francisco Sheriff Mercarimi, he should be removed from office by noon today, and frankly by midnight. The city of San Francisco and the entire state of California should, by emergency order, be rescinding their anti-detainer policies and sanctuary policies. Interestingly, you've had Senator Feinstein oppose this policy now, and even Hillary Clinton has weighed in. Mm-hmm. But and here's the sad part, realistically, unless the citizens of California keep up the pressure in the aftermath of this murder, this tragedy and these policies are going to fall out of the news cycle. They're going to be forgotten, at least until the next illegal alien gets released from jail and murders another innocent person.
Bob Dane with us from fairus.org. It's Riley and Scot on WROK. A story from last week, William Lajourday at Fox. Most illegal immigrants from border surge skipped court date after release, got about 85% who never showed up for their court date. Now, the administration keeps talking about, we're just using discretion to prioritize who we prosecute, who we deport. Bob, how can you possibly prioritize that which you do not know? You do not know who these people are. You do not know now where they are because they don't show up for court. How is that possible?
Right. The vast majority of illegal aliens who are showing up into the United States are proactively approaching Border Patrol agents because they know they will be given a release, they'll be given a work permit, and a promise to show up in court, and over 70% of them don't show. This is the ultimate goal of the Obama administration, because you can't control what you don't limit, and this is creating look. There is a court decision right now underway stopping Obama's amnesty, and we will see how that plays out. But really, that's kind of a minor issue compared to the broader issue, because the president has been failing to remove illegal aliens from the country, hold them responsible, even if they weren't eligible for amnesty. And the fact is that unless an illegal alien is a violent convicted felon, they're not a priority for removal. But even there, now it gets even more bizarre, because we saw that last year 36,000 criminal illegal aliens were released back out onto the street. We're not getting even the minimum that we were promised from this administration. We are in a crisis point. This is where Congress, and the Republicans in particular, they got to put their jerseys back on and get back in the game. Last November, they won the House, the Senate. They promised us they'd rein in this president, and they didn't do it. Last December, they told us they would defund the amnesty. When the defense bill came up, that didn't happen. Then they said, well, let the courts figure it out. Well, they have, and there's no more excuses left. They've got to get off their collective derriere and take another swipe at Obama's budget, defund his amnesty efforts as a precaution, because if this court decision goes the wrong way, and I'm talking about the amnesty, Obama could and would proceed in a nanosecond.
And perhaps this horrific event in San Francisco might give some of these guys that you're mentioning here the impetus to do what they told us they would do.
Rational enforcement of reasonable law is the basic minimum, and certainly in an era where we have heightened national security threats, you got to scratch your head, and you really have to wonder. If they're not doing a good job apprehending and detaining criminal aliens, and they're putting them back out on the street, what about the worst category, the national security threats? I don't have much confidence they're doing much to identify and remove aliens who might be national security threats.
Bob Dane with us from fairfairus.org. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. July 2nd story in the Washington Post, lost a bit in the holiday weekend. DHS scales back deportation, aims to integrate illegal immigrants into society. The administration beginning a profound shift in its enforcement of immigration laws, aiming to hasten the integration of long-term illegal immigrants into society rather than targeting them for deportation. What's happening here, Bob?
The astonishing part of that story, which was a Jerry Marcon article in the Washington Post, which really, I thought, blew the doors off all of the backdoor deals that the president has been making, ratcheting down enforcement for the last few years. It was not a surprise to us. It was not a surprise to you and your listeners, because we have known that immigration enforcement has slowed to a crawl in this country. What's astonishing about that Washington Post article from a far-left publication is that they were actually willing to reveal that there's very little enforcement left in the country, and that the president is basically giving a middle finger to the courts and to Congress and saying, if I can't have my amnesty, I will achieve it in any other way I can, and he has. So he's just releasing aliens back out onto the street, giving them work permits, and then penalizing the states who don't toe the line, and certainly rewarding those who do.
He's Bob Dane from FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform. FairUS.org is a website you're going to want to check out. Bob, as always, thanks for the time. Thanks for the expertise.
Thanks, gentlemen.